Hey everybody, it is Kim Peterson here of Uniquely Savvy, and I have a guest today, and my guest today is Stacy Fisher. And really, thank you so much for hopping on today, Stacy. What I wanted for you all as viewers to gain from today is to get a little bit of sense of community and also some practical ways that you can step into self-care. And Stacy is a beautiful soul. I'm so glad you're on today. She is a registered dietitian. She's been working in the healthcare industry for over 20 years, and she's also a lifestyle coach who works with women to enhance her self-care and enhance her overall lifestyle, and to do so with greater ease. And Stacy, would you just echo that or add anything onto that if I missed anything? How would you best describe who you are and how you serve women?
Thank you so much, Kim. Thank you for inviting me to be here and to share this very important topic. As you mentioned, I've worked in traditional healthcare settings for many years, and about 5 years ago, realized just how valuable self-care is from a very holistic view. And I design self-care programs and educational courses and a community for women specifically who are interested in expanding their self-care practice. And the end goal of all of our work with self-care is to create more ease and better health. And to me, that is how we define our success when it comes to self-care and just taking care of ourselves and our family. So can't wait to jump into this topic.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And so what I know to be true is that Stacy and I were having a conversation just about really how to do life, really, and how to navigate through this season that we are all in right now with the coronavirus. And what I asked Stacy is, I said, Stacy, can you hop on and tell us actionable, high impact ways that we can engage in intentional self-care? Because what I know to be true is if we don't have our own solid foundation and our own self-care, mind, body, and soul, how are we going to be effective for our families? How will we be effective for our businesses or the teams that we lead? And certainly, how will we be able to be effective in the community? And so I'm just so grateful because I know that I have some certain self-care practices that have kept me afloat. One of them of which is gratitude, that I'd love to share a little bit later. But I'd love to hear from you. And what I know to be true is this is a time where our emotions are, on a roller coaster. Our realities, we're having to pivot quickly in every way. So what would you share with us? What are maybe the top 3 best practices that are really impactful for you right now?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking this question, because we find ourselves in a really interesting time right now, and we are probably going to experience more of these kinds of unusual things as we go through life. And for me, it just feels like there are some intense emotions and waves, almost like we're in a life preserver and we just keep riding these waves. As I told you when we just jumped on the call, today is kind of one of those emotionally charged days for me. And, it's the little things. I don't know if any of your listeners can relate to this, but I feel like I deal with the big things pretty well. But those little things, when they just keep coming at you, I feel for the moms out there who have normal daily life and now they have toddlers in the house 24/7 and a spouse or partner in the house 24/7. And it's all these little deep things that can be overwhelming. And so what I've done is I've had to go kind of back to what I teach and the lifestyle design planner that I've published and really practice what I preach. And that is, we've got to know what we need at every given moment, because when we feel those surges of energy, we have to check out and say, okay, what do I need right now? Mm-hmm. And then we have to prioritize. We cannot do everything. And okay, so here's what happened. I got a new phone. I smashed my old one, and I've been dreading getting this new phone because I'm changing from Android to Apple. Well, if anybody else loves technology as much as I do, it's just like, I literally all morning, it's like, okay, this is not a huge problem in the grander scheme of things, right? But it's the little things that almost flame the already emotional state that we have, right? We can't connect with our families. We're worried about the health of our communities, friends. People are out of jobs, and there's so much uncertainty about how are we going to recover, both as individuals and families and a nation. So I say this for the listeners who can relate to that, like, should I feel guilty for being upset about this little phone thing? Or how about we just allow those waves to happen?
So good.
And the most important thing, Kim, is to know what to do with that energy. And I describe emotions as energy a lot, and managing our energy is so, so important. So I have to know what to do. What is my release? What is a healthy release? Do I go mix a drink? Do I go for a walk? Do I sit in a silent meditation? We have to make really good decisions about what is going to serve our best interest and our family's best interest right now. It's critical, because we can be snappy when we have these really intense emotions that we're dealing with. And do you see where I'm getting with this is like,
oh, sure.
When we have those intense emotions, it carries into everything else in our life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what I heard you say is one of the number one best practices you do is to ask yourself, what do I need right now? And then to prioritize what those needs are, and then to move into action to have a healthy self-release.
Yes.
To manage that energy. I love that. I love this girl. You see, this is what I do all the time, is what do I need right now? Mm-hmm. And sometimes that might be something as simple as a nap, which is important, or some food or a hug. But what do you need right now?
Yes, so that's the best question you can ask yourself and a loved one. If a loved one is the one having some energy management issues, it's okay to say, what do you need right now? Or what do you need from me right now? How can I help?
So good.
And I call it the Rate Your 8 tool. Of course, I developed this 8-dimensional self-care framework that I use in all the work I do. And its purpose is to help us prioritize where we need to focus our energy. And out of those 8 areas, my top 3 right now, and I know a lot of those I work with, is the emotive dimension. So managing this energy that just seems to come in waves. How do we manage that in a healthy way? Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the financial is on a lot of people's minds right now. And the best way to deal with the things that are causing the imbalance of our emotions is to really deal with it, to sit down and look at our options and make ourselves more aware of our situation so that we can make good decisions. But that requires us to be in a good emotional space to do that. Right. So those are 2 of the 3 that I'm focused on right now.
So good, so good. And before we move on to another, I just wanted to echo what you said, which I think was beautiful, is whatever your emotion is to just feel into it. Don't feel guilty about it. And I caught myself with that same sort of thought, because this is not an easy time. It's a difficult time. It's a challenging time. And, it produces cause for a lot of concern for sure. But I found that I have been having joy, like legitimate joy on some days or during some parts of some days. And at first I was like, oh, I shouldn't, you know, I shouldn't be feeling joy or happiness. And then I caught myself right away and I thought, no, there's room for all of our emotion. And like you were saying, it's good to give ourselves permission to be there, right? And then release it and be able to move on.
Yeah, I go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to ask your opinion, and maybe this is in your last self-care point, but when it comes to those sorts of things, I think of our emotional health and I think of our mental health and how important it is to acknowledge the truth or the reality of something so that we can process it and let it go and then free up space, right, for, a positive engagement or a positive emotion or something, right? But if we're stuffing, and you could speak to this, but if we're stuffing it, what are the consequences of that, and how might we stay stuck there?
Yeah, no, I mean, what you bring up is a really, really good point. And I think for those who might be really struggling with the emotions, I want to make sure I say that if you are staying in that low place for a long period of time, please reach out to a licensed therapist, someone who is trained in dealing with this. Yes, it's part of self-care, but I think there also comes a point where we need to connect with someone who has that as their number one area of expertise. So there are lots of self-care tools, but for those, I mean, I had a client this week who was experiencing intense anxiety, and we were able to chat by phone, but thankfully she was able to connect with someone who was really, really geared toward helping her in that specific area. So just trust yourself to know that it's okay to feel what you're feeling, but also connect with what you need, right? So it's one thing to understand what we need, but giving ourselves permission to receive what we need is another big piece of that. And I find that a lot of us do kind of compare what other people's opinions are. I mean, everyone has an opinion about everything,
Right,
especially at this point in time. Should I
right.
do this, or I need to write a book, or no, I don't, or I need to give myself space. Trust yourself. This is an opportunity for all of us to reconnect with that truth within us that knows what we need. And we don't need to compare to our neighbor or all of our friends in our social media feeds. That's wonderful if you feel really creative and this is your time to kind of use that creative energy to create something wonderful. If you're being called to go inward and take more naps and spend more time just snuggling with your pet or a family member, do
Mhm,
that. This
mhm.
is a chance for us to have to rebuild a sense of trust within ourselves that
So good.
it's okay, whatever you choose, it must be what you need if you're drawn to that.
Right. So good. I appreciate you saying that. And I also want to say one other thing that I just learned, and I think it's important to share, especially because you're saying, don't compare yourself to your neighbor or to others. One thing that I learned from a therapist on a Zoom call earlier was this sort of a situation can also trigger the things that were lying dormant within you. Or if you have some, for me, I'll just use myself as an example, is I would have had some residual PTSD from 20 plus years ago with domestic violence. But what she said was so important because all of us are going to be responding differently. And even if we've responded emotionally in one way, our bodies, what she said is our bodies still hold past trauma if we haven't dealt with it. And so even if we don't know it at a high level, we can be triggered in different ways now. So it's not fair for us, for me to compare myself to you or you to me or somebody else as well. And like you said, really listen to our bodies and allow this to be a time of rebuilding and retrusting, right? Is that part of the work that you help people navigate through as well in your
Yeah, I mean, I
self-care
think
program?
what you bring up is such an important thing to acknowledge. As we are settling into this period of time where we're almost hibernating to some degree, we are used to, as a culture, being busy. And our busyness, I think, can be a way that we suppress a lot of the things that we haven't wanted to deal with. I'm so busy, I don't have time. It's a way for us to maybe even escape some of the work that we need to do on our emotional stuff and dealing with past experiences. As you were just describing, 20 plus years ago, maybe there's been a relationship that has never fully even come to a close, or there's just some things lying bubbling under the surface that we have not wanted or not have been ready, which is totally okay. We're not ready until we're ready. But when we have space, when the space opens up and we no longer can say, I don't have time, I'm too busy, those things tend to bubble up a bit. And so it becomes even more important to manage, as you were saying, our mindset. Because we can quickly go into that rumination and relive a lot of those experiences and get stuck in that.
Right.
And so while yes, it's an opportunity to work through some of those things, just remember that you don't have to solve it today. You don't have to get it all resolved, but just know that it may surface. And yes, self-care really does help with that. And we're ready when we're ready, and for how much of that do we have capacity? And that's getting to know ourselves.
So good. Now, what would you say your number 3 best practices for self-care right now?
Yeah, so as I said, emotional energy, getting a reality check in our finances. And the third one is the environmental dimension of self care. And I describe that as, yes, harmonizing with nature. And while many of us in bigger cities probably have limited ability to get out and about, but I live in Florida, and of course, the weather is much nicer than in some parts of the country, and there are plenty of open spaces where there aren't people to be out taking a walk. Um, and so that is critical. I really think for me, it and all of them tie together, right, Kim? Like all these dimensions carry over and connect with other dimensions of our life. And so getting outside is a huge emotional release. If there's intense energy, we can take a walk and get the endorphins going, and being outside really helps. But the other piece of that is, what is it like in your home? Wherever you are, in the personal spaces where you've been isolating yourself, how do you feel when you're in those spaces? And if you don't have already a little nook or a little corner or a room that you can go to that you call your own, I would highly encourage you to think about what that sacred space might look like. Even if it's a place you just go to take a 5-minute break in silence, maybe you read there, maybe it's where you do prayer and meditation. Having a place that just feels safe and calming is critical right now. And I talk to moms a lot who are like, okay, I just have to lock myself in the bathroom because I cannot get any kind of space to myself. It might be the porch, it might be sitting in your car for a few minutes. I mean, we have to get creative, but the environmental dimension does feed our emotions. So if you have just chaos around you and never a moment
Mm.
of quiet, or if it's the opposite and you really love being around people and the quiet is, a little unnerving, maybe it's going and listening music or a podcast in your nook, just so you feel connected.
Right. Right. That's so good. So good. And I think that, it is a new reality for us, right? I mean, we're, for the most part, we're all spending time together in our homes with our spouses, our kids, our fur babies. And this is an important part of navigating this and navigating it well. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Um, I have two more things before I want to see where people can find you, because I know you have a program that's coming up that might be helpful for folks. But one is for I think a lot about the young people who are out of school right now. Their whole structure has shifted and they have had to come inward. Do you, and this might be the same answer, but do you have something that you would share for that younger population to really help them, like, just kind of walk through this with a little bit more ease?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very unique time for not just adults, but for the kiddos who I think are starting to see the value of school, and they are missing their classmates and teachers. And I look through a lot of my social feeds and friends of mine who are teachers, and I have a fair amount of friends and family who actually have been homeschooling for quite a while. And so it's not a huge shift for them. It's, they've already got some structure and things laid out. Um, but what I love the most, Kim, is seeing families now, while it might look awkward, they're able to really connect with their kids and teach them some valuable real life skills, like how to prepare meals, like
Mhm.
creating art together. I love seeing the pictures. I'm sure your news feeds are full of those as well. I mean, maybe the first couple of weeks it was like, okay, what do we do? What in the
Mhm.
world are we going to do to make sure that the kids are still learning and staying on track? Well, these are all brand new opportunities. Like, what are we going to do out in the garage and in the garden and in the kitchen and all these different life skill areas? It's a huge opportunity for kids. And here's what I would say, as a caveat, I'm not a parent, but I love seeing how excited kids are. This is a huge opportunity for parents to kind of be paying attention and seeing, what is it that my child's really interested in? What do they want to learn more about? What are they
Mhm.
drawn to? So I think it's a huge opportunity to connect with each other and learn things that maybe you'd never learn in a classroom, right? Taking advantage of that time. So just being open maybe is the best piece of advice for both kids and parents, is like staying open to learning what you're supposed to be learning right now.
So good. So good. I appreciate that. And then I know that you and I have chatted, and I'm big on this, so I'm going to share one of my top self-care tips as well, which is to be grateful, to actually have an expression of gratitude for at least one thing every day. And for me personally, for someone who used to really struggle a lot with depression and anxiety, a lot. It was about 20 years ago again, where I learned, working with a therapist. Um, she said, start a gratitude journal and write down at least one thing every single day for which you are grateful. Because I was really up here in my head, and I thought I was going to remain homeless. And I mean, it was just really, my reality was volatile, but um, she was giving me new tools to help me reframe and help me to also see some other good things that were still going around and what around me. And what I learned to be true, Stacy, is when I looked for one thing, I could often find many things in a day that for which I could be grateful. And what it did is it actually helped to crowd out that depression a little bit and that anxiety a little bit, because it's showing all of the things that are possible and all of the things that are. So when this all started, I just implemented for myself 30 days of gratitude challenge as preventative medicine, even just to say, okay, you know, I know that the propensity for that is stronger right now. So what can I put into place right now for myself? So I think today is day 15. But thank you so much for sharing your tips. I'm hoping you can tell us where we can find you to learn more, and if you can also explain a little bit more about this program that you have coming up.
Absolutely. Well, I love that your gratitude work. I mean, Martin Seligman at the University of Pennsylvania has done a lot of work in positive psychology, and we know that gratitude really is one of those things that buoys the human spirit. So I can see how valuable that must be for you right now. And I think all of us can benefit from including some kind of gratitude practice in our self-care rotation. So thank you for reminding us of that. All of these things, I just want to point out that self-care is really personal. And so when I've created products around self-care and programs around self-care, I always keep in mind that it's going to look different for all of my clients. I don't believe in a prescriptive way of practicing self-care. As long as it's supporting our health in some way, it's self-care. And in fact, some research says that 80% of all health-related care is self-care because it's everything we do between doctor's appointments. So it's very valuable. And the other piece to this is that we often make it very complicated. We put together these elaborate plans and we feel bad if we don't get around to our self-care. And then it creates, you know, more difficulties for us. So the program that's starting this month is called Simplify. And it just feels good to think about this program because anytime we can simplify what we're doing in all of these different areas of our life, it's just like, you know, when you eliminate all of these things that we've created on our to-do list, we've created a lot of them for ourselves. We realize that there's so much joy that we probably have been missing out on. And so what this 3-month program is designed to do is to go through each of these key areas of our life and figure out how to simplify the stuff we're doing every day. From how are we managing our energy to managing our finances to the way that we eat and nourish our bodies. As a dietitian for over 20 years, I know that that is a critical piece of our well-being, but there are so many other areas that intertwine with that. So there is private coaching with me, there are live classes as a group, and then there's a course. So there's a lot of video and workbook type learnings in the program. And my goal with this was to really provide layers of accountability for people who want to make changes, because we can't go back to the way we were doing before, Kim. It was not a good way of being to begin with. And I think more of us are seeing the value of, we need to take better care of ourselves. Our families need us to take better care of ourselves.
Yeah.
And when we are well, and when we're functioning at our best, we're more creative. We can roll with the stuff that happens so much more easily. Our jobs are easier. Just everything falls into place when we are well and when we're taking good care of ourselves. And I fully believe in the power of self-care, and for a long time it's been underutilized. So my goal with this program is to help people simplify so they can find more joy.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much. So again, what is your website? Where can they find you?
Absolutely. So it's livingup.com with 2 P's. So livingupp.com. And you can easily find the programs that are going on right now. I also just launched a financial self-care kit that helps people look through 150 different areas of their life to save some money right now, which I know is on the minds of many, many people. So lots of goodies there wherever you are in your self-care practice. And so hopefully you'll find something that will help support you at this time.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Stacy. I appreciate all of your wisdom and your experience. And to you viewers, we hope that this has been educational. Again, my name is Kim Peterson of Uniquely Savvy, really wanting to inspire hope and equip you during these times of change. And what I know to be true is we will get through this and we'll get through it together. So thank you for helping us do that today, Stacy.
Thank you so much for having me, Kim.
You're welcome. Bye for now.
Bye.